Sporterized old military rifles. That's what we're going to talk about today. What would you choose? What was the most popular choice? And what would I choose if I were going to sporterize an old military firearm? That's the topic du jour. Saddle up for an episode of Gunfighter Life, where we talk about guns, gunfighting, tactics, ballistics, the right way, with almighty God at the center, Judeo-Christian values, and real-world first-hand experience. I am blessed to be your host. Bio should be in the show notes. All right, let's get into today's topic. What would you sporterize if you were going to sporterize an old military rifle? I posted this to the Patreon page, a poll, and I put a couple of different options on there. So this is born out of a Patreon poll, just to let you know. Pretty cool. I try and do those quite often. People like them. They interact with them. And it just gives me a pulse for what you guys want, what you guys are thinking about. And sometimes, by God's grace, it gives me content. So with that said, let's take a look at this poll here. The 1903 Springfield won. I'm actually surprised. I thought it would have been the Mauser. The 1903 Springfield won by quite a margin, but behind that, the second one was the Mauser 98. And then not doing too good were the Mauser Nagant got 0 votes. The Enfield got some, and then other got some. So, and I was limiting this to World War I type rifles, not getting into World War II rifles. You can really get crazy with that stuff. But I wanted it mostly to be like a bolt action, since we were all pretty much using bolt actions at that time. I know there was some other stuff, but the vast majority, every main country was arming their infantrymen with bolt action rifles. Most still were in World War II. But out of those, let's talk about some cool options. The 1903 Springfield is basically a Mauser copy. You can get mad at that if you want, but the Germans sued us, and they even won because it's clearly a Mauser. You might argue it's a better refined Mauser and an American-made Mauser, and I'd say, yeah, all those things, that's great. So the 1903 Springfield. Let's talk about it. First, I want to throw in a caveat. Do not take do what you want. It's your money, but it's not like a shall not. It's not a commandment, right? You shall not sporterize. But I would advise you not to take an original old matching serial number, good condition, one of these guns and sporterize it. Many of them have already been sporterized, though. There was a time when these were so cheap and so available that people just sporterized them all the time. But those days are kind of over, and they're kind of a piece of history. So there's plenty of them out there that have been sporterized. So if you get one with little to no collector value, like it's already had a barrel change, it's already been sporterized, it's already been rechambered, it doesn't have matching numbers, right? It has little to no, I wouldn't say no, but little military historical value because it's already been sporterized, then you might look at getting one of these actions and sporterizing them. So I just want to throw that out there. I'm not telling you to go out there and sporterize an old pristine German 98K, right? But if you were going to sporterize an already sporterized Mauser, what are some really cool options? Well, if you wanted a big bruiser, the 9.3x62 has some pretty awesome ballistics. If you got that chambered, a good walnut stock, got it chambered in 9.3x62, and you just even the sights that are on it would probably be fine, but you might want to shorten it up, put some like express type sights on there. That would be a really, really cool gun, and really cool. Obviously, there are a lot of Mausers kicking around in the 757. That's still a great cartridge and very versatile. You could just keep it in that caliber and make it lighter and handier, and that would be a great, woods walking carbine. It would be a fantastic gun. I saw one that had been sporterized in a Cabela's recently. I want to say it was under $200. It was maybe under $300, but it was so low. I was like, it's dirt cheap. I didn't get it because I don't really have a use for one, but a rifle like that's that affordable in 7x57 Mauser, an old Sporterized Mauser that would still go out and hunt, especially if you wanted to hunt iron sights, fantastic option. Let's talk about the 1903 Springfield. Now, it originally came chambered in 30-06, and there'd be nothing wrong with one Sporterized that was still chambered in 30-06. They're a good controlled round feed like the Mauser. They're a good robust action. But they're a American standard length or what we would call a long action or standard length action. So kind of sky's the limit. You could get one, you could rechamber it for the 280 Ackley Improved, of which I am a fan. You could get it converted to a 270, an American Classic, in an American Classic cartridge, right? A 1903 rechambered to 270. I'm sure that's been done. Beautiful. That would be a beautiful piece. Classic lines. I like iron sights, so I would keep them, but you might opt to take them off. It's a good action. It's basically an American-made controlled round feed. American Mauser. It's a great action, with the caveat of some of the older Springfield made 1903s had heat treat problems. Make sure you look that up and research that. But some of the early ones, they were so old. They're so old that the heat treating on the metal was not that great. I don't think any of the Mausers had that problem, but the 1903 Springfields did. Some of them won't even shoot are not advised to shoot. I'm sure they would shoot, but are not advised to shoot modern loadings of 30-06. The military loading of 30-06, it was kind of weak sauce compared to what you can get today. So beware of that. Do your own research. But if the serial number can handle it, if it's made in a vintage that would handle the pressure, rechambering it to 270 or 280 Ackley Improved or something like that should be fine. Good modern barrel with good, spalted maple. I kind of like the blonde maple look, the real light colored look, but whatever you wanted to do there, that would be a really cool sporterization. One that would be very neat would be one in 35 Whelen. 35 Whelen's a real cool cartridge. I've heard it referred to as the poor man's Magnum. I didn't come up with that, but, back in the day, like 375 H's and H's were pretty expensive, and they require a Magnum length action. But the 35 Whelen, you could just rebarrel the 1903 again, as long as it could handle the pressure. That would be a really cool thing. The 1903 and 35 Whelen would be a hammer. It just kind of seems fair if you were going to do a Mauser to do it 9.3x62, because that's a German cartridge made for the German Mauser, and the 1903 Springfield, since it's an American cartridge made for chambered in that American rifle. But you could do the reverse if you wanted to get crazy, right? There's nothing apocryphal about making a Mauser 98 and 35 Whelen, or making a 1903, I guess, in 9.3x62. I think it would chamber it. If you kind of wanted a bruiser heavy hitter, either one of those options would work. What would I choose if I was picking one? I gave an other option, and it would have been other. It would have been none of those. I would probably Sporterize, and this is, again, one that doesn't have a ton of collector value, one that's already been messed with, but the 6.5 Mannlicher Schoenhauer. I think that is already one of the most beautiful rifles that have ever been made, especially military guns. But if you're not familiar, one of the distinct features that some of them have a full-length stock, but they're just a light, handy carbine. I would redo mine with like a modern Monte Carlo full-length stock that goes all the way out to the end of the barrel. One of the cool features about the rifle, it has a rotary magazine, much like you would see later on the 1022, much later on the 1022. But a rotary magazine, it's sleek, it's svelte. It came in 6.5x54. It came in a bunch of cartridges, but I think the OG is 6.5x54. I could be wrong about that. The old esoteric military stuff is not my forte. But one of those Mannlicher Schoenhauers, I would, if was going to get Sporterized, I would probably rebarrel it. I would probably keep it in a 6.5 because it was in a 6.5. I would probably get it, and this might anger some people, but whatever. I'd probably get it, and if I mechanically could, if the engineering hurdles weren't too great, I would just get it rechambered in 6.5 Creedmoor. Because it's still a 6.5, it's probably roughly about the same power as that really old cartridge, but it's just more modern and available, and I would want to shoot with it and hunt with it. So the Mannlicher Schoenhauer and 6.5 Creedmoor, keep a lot of the classic aesthetics. I would probably get it so I could mount a small LPVO on top, or maybe a scout scope if it didn't lend itself to an optic on the top of the receiver. And I would have good iron sights on it. I would have that classic full-length stock, some kind of beautiful, American walnut, French walnut, spalted maple, some kind of blonde honey-colored stock maybe, and just a fine rifle. Monte Carlo, full-length stock. I just think those are some of the most beautiful rifles ever made. And that's what I would pick. Maybe his old school brass butt pad with the weight of that rifle and that cartridge, it wouldn't kick much. Just a really beautiful gun. I don't plan on doing that, but if I was, that would be the one that I would want to do it with. So with that, guys, I appreciate you. I appreciate all that you do. What would you pick? What would you Sporterize? Again, Patreon. There's stuff like that on there all the time. There's polls like that all the time. I just posted a poll on our chat yesterday of what do you think the odds are that India and Pakistan will go hot on a nuclear exchange? Things like that. Just different comments and stuff. Be a part of the group if you want. Check it out on Patreon. Anyway, with that, guys, a verse I've been meditating on. I went out yesterday into the wilderness. I got called in on one of my days off. I had a stretch of days off. I got called in, which kind of messed up my plans to go spring bear hunting again. But I did get out and get some fishing in, and I caught a beautiful, beautiful rainbow trout. If COVID taught us anything, it's that when you're sick, social distance. So I got real social distanced. Way out into the bushes as far as I could, and with a day off pretty much and being sick. But that actually didn't come from COVID. That comes from Jesus. Go ye out into a deserted place and rest a while. That's not the verse of the day, though. The verse of the day is one that I was meditating on when I was out there. Seek justice, love mercy, walk humbly with thine God. Seek justice, love mercy, walk humbly with thine God. Thanks for listening, and have a blessed day.